Hands up. Don't move. The shout hit me like a thunderclap, and I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs as I stood outside the Pike Place market, 30 pounds of groceries digging into my arms, my daughter's stuffed bunny slipping to the wet Seattle pavement. At 50, I, Judge Elena Carter, thought I'd seen every shade of injustice in my courtroom, but nothing prepared me for Officer Ryan Caldwell's cold eyes boring into me, his hand hovering near his belt, ready to escalate a Saturday afternoon into a nightmare. The crowd, maybe 25 people, gasped, phones already out, filming what felt like my dignity unraveling under a gray 65-degree sky. "What's this about, officer?" I asked, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest, honed from years of facing down chaos in King County Superior Court. Caldwell, 42, white, with a jaw set like concrete, barked, "ID. Now. You're loitering." Loitering? Me, in a tailored blazer, holding salmon and kale for tonight's dinner. I set the bags down, slow, deliberate, my mother's warning echoing, "Elena, don't give M an excuse." I handed over my license, the one marking me as Honorable Elena Carter, and watched Caldwell's eyes narrow, a flicker of shock swallowed by defiance. "Routine," he snapped, but his tone screamed control, like my judgeship was a challenge to his power. I felt the weight of every stare, every lens, and the sting of being reduced to a suspect in my own city, where I'd sentenced 60 cases a month for a decade. My daughter, Zoe, 10, flashed in my mind, her curious eyes asking questions I wasn't ready to answer, and I swallowed the urge to snap back, knowing one wrong move could steal our future. Caldwell scribbled, dragging it out, while whispers buzzed, "That's Judge Carter. He's out of line." And I stood, rooted, the bunny soaked in a puddle, my resolve hardening. This wasn't new. At 18, I'd been stopped near Fremont, questioned for looking out of place, and at 35, profiled outside my own courthouse, but now, with Zoe's trust at stake, it cut deeper. Finally, he shoved my ID back, muttering, "Move along," but his sneer said I'd never be free from his kind of justice. I gathered my things, heart pounding, and walked the 600 feet to my car, each step fueling a fire I hadn't known I carried. At home, 7 miles away, my husband, Jamal, a 48-year-old teacher, saw my face and knew. "Elena, what happened?" he asked, his voice soft but urgent, and I spilled it all, the words raw, my hands shaking as I clutched Zoe's bunny. Jamal held me, his embrace a fortress, and I felt the anger shift to purpose, a vow to shield Zoe from this pain. She skipped in, waving a glittery drawing, and I kissed her, promising a better world, even if I had to carve it myself. My phone buzzed. Texts, X notifications, a 90-second video of the encounter, viewed 4 million times by 10 p.m. Hashtag Justice for Carter trended, and I scrolled through posts, some raging at Caldwell, others sharing their own stops, each story a wound we shared. Jamal sat beside me, his hand warm, as we watched Cairo 7 News, 12 million viewers, replay the clip, my calm defiance against Caldwell's aggression. "They're waking up," Jamal said, and I nodded, but doubted, would they fight? By morning, 300 emails flooded my inbox, half from strangers, half from allies like Nia Brooks, a 30-year-old activist with 250,000 ex-followers. She'd planned a rally at Westlake Park, 1 mile from Pike Street, and begged me to speak. I hesitated, my judicial poise warring with the fury in my soul, but Nia's words, "You're our voice, Elena," lit a spark. I thought of Zoe, the teens I mentored at the 8,000-square-foot community center, the cases I judged, each a chance to rewrite wrongs. This was our fight. At noon, I stood at Westlake, 1,200 people sprawled across the plaza, signs waving, "End profiling now." Judge Carter stands tall. Nia, in a green jacket, handed me the mic, and I faced them, my pulse racing. "I'm not here for sympathy," I said, my voice cutting through the drizzle. "I'm here for justice, for every black woman, every child, stopped for existing." The crowd roared, their hope a tidal wave, and I saw Jamal and Zoe, Jamal's eyes proud, Zoe clutching her bunny. I spoke of Seattle's spirit, its coffee, its music, its fight, and how we could honor its history by demanding change. Live streams carried my words to 15,000, and I felt the city stir, like it was breathing again. Nia announced a digital truth wall, a new platform for 10,000 Seattleites to share profiling stories anonymously, building a case for reform. As I stepped down, Maya Chen, a 52-year-old civil rights lawyer, gripped my arm. "We're suing, Elena," she said, her eyes fierce. "Caldwell and the system. You ready?" I glanced at Jamal, his nod steady, and knew this was bigger than one rainy day. I thought of a poetry slam I'd seen on X, 2 million views, where youth bared their souls about racism, and it fueled me, a hope we could rewrite this story. "I'm ready," I told Maya, and as the crowd chanted, I felt a surge, not of rage, but of destiny. Caldwell, I learned later, sat in his 30,000 square foot precinct, his badge heavy, his colleagues whispering. He'd seen the video, felt the city's eyes, and something cracked, guilt, maybe, or fear of losing the power he wielded so freely. This wasn't over, and I knew he'd fight back, his bias a wall I'd have to tear down, brick by brick, for Zoe, for Seattle, for us all. The morning after the rally at Westlake Park, I woke to the soft patter of Seattle rain against our bedroom window, my mind still buzzing with the roar of 1,200 voices chanting for justice. At 50, I'd spent years wielding a gavel in King County Superior Court, believing change came through verdicts, but now, with 4 million views of that Pike Place video burning through X, I felt a different power stirring, a city's heartbeat, raw and unyielding. Jamal was already up, brewing coffee that filled our 2,000 square foot home with warmth, and he handed me a mug, his eyes searching mine. "You okay, Elena?" he asked, his teacher's patience grounding me. I wasn't sure, I felt exposed, like the world had seen me stripped of my robe, just a black woman facing down bias, but I nodded, clutching the mug, determined to turn that moment into something bigger for Zoe, for us all. My phone vibrated with 500 new X notifications, hashtag Justice for Carter still trending, and a message from Nia Brooks, the 30-year-old activist whose green jacket had blazed like a beacon yesterday. "Town Hall tonight, 7 p.m., Community Center. We need you," she wrote, and I felt a pull, like destiny tugging at my soul. I thought of Zoe, 10, asleep upstairs, her bunny tucked under her arm, and how she'd asked last night, "Mama, why was that man mad at you?" I'd fumbled, explaining prejudice in words too big for her, and her frown had carved a promise in me, I'd fight so she'd never feel this weight. By noon, I was at my office, 5 miles from Pike Street, sifting through 60 case files, but my mind was on Maya Chen, the 52-year-old lawyer who'd vowed to sue. She called, her voice sharp with purpose, "We're meeting at my firm, 4 p.m. We're going after Caldwell and the department, $750,000 and systemic reform. You in?" My heart raced, judicial caution clashing with the fire Nia's rally had lit, but I saw Zoe's drawing on my desk, me in a cape labeled, "Hero Judge," and said, "I'm in." At Maya's 1,500 square foot office near Pioneer Square, we mapped our fight, a civilian oversight board with 12 members, 10 hours of annual bias training for 1,500 officers, and mandatory body camera audits every 90 days. Maya's eyes gleamed, her years of battling injustice fueling her, and I felt a kinship, like we were warriors forging a new path. Nia joined us, her 250,000 X followers a digital army, and proposed a virtual town hall series on Zoom, already drawing 6,000 RSVPs for tonight's kickoff. "Seattle's ready to talk, Elena," she said, and I believed her, picturing the 7,000 square foot community center packed with voices like mine, tired but unbroken. That evening, I stood before 450 residents, the room humming with hope and anger, signs reading "End Bias Now," taped to folding chairs. I spoke of my stop, my voice cracking as I admitted, I wasn't scared, I was exhausted, knowing my robe didn't shield me. The crowd nodded, some wiping tears, and I felt their stories, stops at Fremont Troll, questions on Capitol Hill, knitting us together. Nia followed, announcing a citywide poetry slam next week at Seattle Center, inviting 2,000 to share verses on racism, a new spark to keep our fight alive. Her passion, raw and electric, reminded me of my younger self, arguing cases at 30, believing words could shift mountains. Jamal and Zoe sat in the front row, Jamal's hand on hers, and I drew strength from them, vowing to make Seattle a city where Zoe could walk free. Across town, in the 30,000-square-foot precinct, Ryan Caldwell sat in a break room, his badge a lead weight on his chest. The video, now at 5 million views, played on a muted TV, his face frozen in aggression, and he felt the sting of 50 colleagues' glances, some cold, others pitying. At 42, he'd worn the uniform 15 years, believing it made him untouchable, but now doubt crept in, like rain through a cracked window. Officer Kaylin Gwynn, 35, Asian, slid into the seat across from him, her voice low. "Ryan, you saw the rally. They're not stopping. Maybe it's time to listen." She'd been pushing a virtual reality empathy program, 30 minutes daily, letting officers feel profiled through simulations, and Caldwell scoffed, but her words lingered, chipping at his armor. He thought of his daughter, Mia, 12, asking, "Dad, did you do something wrong?" and his lie, "Just my job," tasted bitter. He wasn't ready to bend, not yet, his pride a wall built on years of unchecked power, but the crack was there, and Kayla saw it, her persistence a quiet storm. Back at the town hall, I listened as a barista, a teacher, a nurse, 20 voices, shared their stops, their truths feeding Nia's truth wall, now with 12,000 posts, a digital mosaic of pain and hope. A man, 40, spoke of being questioned near Lake Union, his son watching, and I saw Zoe in his story, my resolve stealing. Nia closed with a call to fund our lawsuit, raising $60,000 on X from 15,000 donors, and I felt Seattle's pulse, alive and fierce. Driving home, 7 miles, Jamal's hand on mine, I thought of the poetry slam, imagining Zoe's generation speaking truths we'd only whispered. At home, Zoe was asleep, her drawing now taped to our fridge, and I traced the cape, feeling its weight. Caldwell, I knew, was out there, his bias a shadow I'd face again, but tonight, Seattle was awake, its voices a chorus I'd carry into court. Maya texted, "Filing tomorrow. Oversight board's our first demand." I replied, "Ready," but sleep eluded me, my mind on the 1,500 officers who'd resist, on Caldwell's sneer, on the 488 square miles of a city I loved, now rising to rewrite its story. Nia's ex-post, viewed 3 million times, quoted me, "Justice isn't just a verdict, it's a promise." I held that promise, for Zoe, for the barista, for us all, knowing the fight was just beginning, and I'd stand tall, robe or not, until bias crumbled under our collective will. The Seattle sky hung heavy with clouds as I stepped into Maya Chen's law office, 5 miles from Pike Place, the weight of our lawsuit against Officer Ryan Caldwell and the Seattle Police Department pressing against my chest like a 50-pound docket of unresolved cases. At 50, I'd spent a decade in King County Superior Court, believing justice was a gavel strike, but now, with 5 million views of my profiling video fueling a city's cry, I felt the stakes shift. My fight wasn't just for me, but for Zoe, for every black woman stopped under a badge's glare. Maya, 52, her silver hair pulled tight, spread blueprints of our case across a 1,500-square-foot conference room, a $750,000 claim for damages and demands for a 12-member civilian oversight board, 10 hours of annual bias training for 1,500 officers, and body camera audits every 90 days. Her eyes, sharp as a prosecutor's, met mine. "Elena, this is war," she said, and I nodded, my heart a drumbeat of resolve, picturing Zoe's glittery drawing of me as a hero judge, taped to my fridge, urging me forward. Nia Brooks burst in, her green jacket aflare, her 250,000 ex-followers a digital tidal wave. "We've raised $75,000 for legal fees," she announced, her voice electric, 18,000 donors on X. And the truth walls at 15,000 stories. I marveled at her fire, so like my own at 30, when I'd argued my first civil rights case, believing words could topple walls. We strategized, Maya's legal precision meshing with Nia's grassroots pulse, and I felt Seattle breathing through us, its 488 square miles ready to rewrite its story. That night, at a 7,000 square foot community center, 2 miles from Westlake Park, I faced 500 residents at a public hearing, my voice steady but raw. This lawsuit isn't revenge, I said, thinking of Jamal's quiet strength, it's a promise to make Seattle safer for my daughter, for yours. The crowd murmured, some clapping, others nodding, their faces, baristas, coders, teachers, mirroring my exhaustion, my hope. Nia unveiled plans for a Unity Murals project, 12,000 square feet of downtown walls to be painted with equality themes by 600 volunteers, a vibrant symbol of our fight. I saw Zoe in the crowd, clutching her bunny, Jamal's arm around her, and my throat tightened, knowing this was for her future, not my past. Across town, in the 30,000 square foot precinct, Ryan Caldwell slumped in a locker room, his badge a cold weight, the video now at 6 million views haunting his every step. At 42, he'd built a fortress of pride over 15 years, believing his uniform justified control, but now, suspended for 3 weeks, he felt 60 colleagues' eyes, some accusing, others distant. Officer Kayla Nguyen, 35, sat beside him, her voice soft but unyielding. Ryan, try the VR empathy training. 30 minutes a day, feel what profiling's like. He scoffed, his jaw tight, but her words stung, echoing his daughter Mia's question, Dad, why's everyone mad? He'd lied, just work, kid, but the truth gnawed, his bias had branded him a villain. The VR headset, new to the precinct, sat on a table, its simulations of being stopped, questioned, judged, daring him to see through my eyes, but he resisted, his power a shield he wasn't ready to drop. Kayla's persistence, her own history of slurs as an Asian officer, cracked his facade, and he wondered, for the first time, if he was the problem. Back at the hearing, a 25-year-old poet, inspired by Nia's upcoming poetry slam, shared a verse about his stop near Space Needle, his words slicing through the room, and I felt the city's pulse, raw and alive. Nia's truth wall grew, 500 new stories daily, each a brick in our case, and I spoke of the murals, imagining Zoe painting one, her bunny tucked in her backpack, her art a beacon. Driving home, 7 miles, Jamal's hand warm on mine, I thought of Caldwell, his sneer a shadow-eyed face in court, but also a man, flawed, maybe reachable. At home, Zoe was asleep, her drawing now framed in our kitchen, and I traced the cape, feeling its call. The next day, Maya filed the lawsuit in a 20,000 square foot courthouse, 1 mile from Pike Place, 350 spectators packing the gallery, their whispers a hum of hope and doubt. I sat beside her, my robe traded for a suit, my heart pounding as the clerk read our demands. Outside, 800 rallied, their signs, Justice for Elena. Visible through windows, and Nia live-streamed to 20,000, her voice a clarion, this is Seattle's stand. I thought of my mother, stopped at 40 in Tacoma, her dignity unshaken, and vowed to honor her. Caldwell, I learned, watched the filing on King 5 News, 10 million viewers, in the precinct break room, his suspension a cage. Kayla pushed again, the VR's not punishment, Ryan. It's truth. He snapped, I don't need a game to do my job, but his voice cracked, Mia's face in his mind, her trust fraying. He thought of me, not as a judge, but as a mother, and felt a pang, guilt, not yet named, but growing. The murals began, 100 volunteers painting at Fremont, their colors, red, gold, blue, shouting equality, and I visited, 3 miles from home, my heart lifting as a teen, 16, painted freedom in bold strokes. Nia's ex-post, viewed 4 million times, showed the mural, captioned, Elena's fight is ours. At the community center, 50 poets signed up for the slam, their verses a weapon, and I mentored one, a 22-year-old nurse, her poem about her brother's stop near Alki Beach breaking my heart. Jamal, teaching 30 kids daily, saw his students discuss the lawsuit, their hope a mirror of Zoe's, and he told me, "Elena, you're changing their world." I felt it, but also the resistance. 20% of Seattle's 700,000 residents grumbling on X, calling our fight anti-cop, their counter-rallies 0.5 miles from City Hall a dark cloud. Caldwell read these posts, his pride flaring, tempted to join the backlash, but Kayla's voice, Mia's eyes, held him back, his conflict a storm I'd soon face. Maya texted, "First hearing in 2 weeks. Be ready." I replied, "Always," but sleep was a stranger, my mind on the 1,500 officers, on Zoe's future, on a city painting murals, speaking truths, and demanding justice, with me at its heart, ready to tear down bias, one verdict at a time. The Seattle courthouse, a 20,000-square-foot fortress of stone and glass, loomed before me as I adjusted my suit, my heart pounding like a gavel at 50, knowing today's trial could reshape a city or break my spirit. 3 months after Ryan Caldwell stopped me on Pike Street, with 6 million views of that video searing Seattle's conscience, I stood ready to face him in court, not as Judge Elena Carter, but as a black woman demanding justice for Zoe, for every soul profiled under a badge's shadow. Inside, 400 spectators packed the 3,000-square-foot courtroom, their whispers a tide of hope and tension, while outside, 1,500 rallied, 0.2 miles away, their chants, "Justice for Elena." Drifting through windows. Maya Chen, 52, my lawyer, sat beside me, her silver hair glinting under fluorescent lights, her voice low, "We've got this, Elena. The truth's on our side." I nodded, clutching Zoe's bunny charm, a gift she'd slipped into my pocket this morning, her 10-year-old eyes wide with pride. Jamal's hand grazed mine from the gallery, his teacher's calm anchoring me, and I drew strength from Nia Brooks' X livestream, reaching 25,000, her green jacket a beacon as she rallied the crowd. Judge Samuel Torres, 60, entered, his presence a quiet storm, and the trial began, my pulse racing as Maya laid out our case, $750,000 in damages, a 12-member oversight board, 10 hours of bias training for 1,500 officers, and camera audits every 90 days. I took the stand, 25 minutes stretching like years, my voice steady but raw. I wasn't a judge that day, I said, eyes on the 14-person jury, Seattle's diversity reflected in their faces. I was a mother, a wife, stopped for being black, my dignity questioned. I spoke of Zoe, of my mother's stops in Tacoma, of the exhaustion that outlasted fear, and felt the room shift, jurors leaning in, some wiping tears. Maya played the video on a 70-inch screen, my calm against Caldwell's sneer, and gasps rippled through, the truth undeniable. Caldwell testified next, 20 minutes, his badge absent, his suit ill-fitting, his voice unsteady. "It was a mistake," he said, eyes darting, "just protocol." But his words faltered, shaped by 30 daily minutes of VR empathy training, pushed by Officer Kaylin Gwynn, 35, who sat in the gallery, her gaze unyielding. He admitted, "I saw Judge Carter's ID, but I didn't see her." The jury stiffened, and I felt a pang, not pity, but recognition of a man wrestling with guilt, his pride crumbling under Seattle's glare. Kayla had told me he'd cried after a VR session, feeling my fear through simulated stops, but his bias, 15 years deep, still fought back, a villain not yet vanquished. Maya's closing, sharp as a blade, framed our fight. "This isn't one officer, it's a system that lets bias thrive. Change it now." The jury deliberated 8 hours, each minute a wait, and I waited outside with Jamal and Zoe, her bunny charm in my palm, rain slicking my hair. Nia's truth wall hit 18,000 stories, each a voice in our chorus, and her poetry slam last week, 2,500 at Seattle Center, had birth verses now painted on 12,000 square feet of unity murals, colors shouting equality across Fremont. A teen's poem, no badge above my name, echoed in my mind, and I vowed to launch Rise Up, a mentorship app connecting 1,000 youth to professionals, Zoe's generation rising unbroken. Judge Torres recalled us, his voice grave, verdict reached. My breath caught as the foreman stood, words thundering, Caldwell liable, $100,000 fine, 50 hours of community service, the department mandated to enact our reforms within 120 days. Cheers erupted, 400 voices shaking the room, and I hugged Maya, tears blurring Zoe's smile as she ran to me, Jamal's arms encircling us. Outside, 1,500 celebrated, a 5-minute drumline from Garfield High pulsing through, but 15% of Seattle's 700,000 grumbled on X, counter-rallies 0.5 miles from City Hall decrying anti-police overreach. I felt their resistance, a shadow Caldwell still carried, his face pale as he left, Kayla at his side, whispering, "It's a start, Ryan." He nodded, volunteering at a 10,000-square-foot community center, 3 miles from Pike Street, teaching kids basketball, his redemption tentative, his bias a battle ongoing. That night, I spoke at a vigil, 600 at Westlake Park, candles flickering against 60-degree drizzle. Justice isn't one day, I said, Nia live streaming to 30,000, it's every day, every choice. I thought of my mother, her dignity in Tacoma, and Zoe, her bunny charm in my pocket, and felt Seattle's pulse. Alive, fractured, but fighting. Rise Up launched, 1,200 teens signing up, and I mentored a 17-year-old coder, her app idea, a digital mural gallery, sparking hope. Nia's X post, viewed 5 million times, showed the vigil, captioned, Elena's voice is Seattle's. At home, 7 miles away, Zoe gave me a new drawing, me with a gavel and cape, and I framed it beside her first, my heart full but heavy. Caldwell, I learned, sat in the precinct, 30,000 square feet of silence, Mia's photo on his locker, VR headset in hand. Kayla's push had cracked him, he'd volunteered 10 hours at the center, kids calling him, coach, but his eyes held doubt, his bias a root deep in 15 years of power. He read X posts, 20% defending him, tempting his pride, but Mia's question, Dad, can you fix it? Held him back, his villainy wavering, not gone. Maya texted, Oversight board starts in 60 days. Ready for phase 2? I replied, born ready, but sleep was distant, my mind on 1,500 officers, on Zoe's world, on murals glowing under streetlights, on a city celebrating yet divided, its 488 square miles a canvas for change. I thought of the slam, a poet's line, we rise where shadows fall, and knew our verdict was a step, not a summit, my fight for justice, for Zoe, for Seattle, burning brighter, ready to face Caldwell's shadow, and win, one heart at a time. 18 months after that rainy day on Pike Street when Ryan Caldwell's voice cut through my world, I stood in Volunteer Park, 3 miles from home, surrounded by 3,500 Seattleites at the inaugural Unity Day Festival, their cheers rising with the 10K run starting whistle under a 70-degree July sun. At 50, I'd spent years shaping justice in King County Superior Court, but now, holding Zoe's hand, her 10-year-old smile bright as she waved an equality flag, I felt a deeper triumph, one no verdict could capture. Jamal, 48, his teacher's warmth steady beside me, nodded toward the Unity murals, 12,000 square feet of vibrant color across Fremont, drawing 15,000 tourists yearly, each brushstroke a vow from 600 volunteers to build a better Seattle. The Civilian Oversight Board, rooted in a 1,500 square foot office near Capitol Hill, reviewed 25 cases monthly, its 12 members, baristas, engineers, elders, holding 1,500 officers accountable. Bias training, 10 hours every quarter, reshaped 400 officers' perspectives in a 2,000 square foot precinct hall, and body camera audits, every 90 days, flagged 10 violations last month, each a brick in Trust's foundation. Nia Brooks, 30, her festival tee replacing her green jacket, emceed from a stage, her 300,000 X-followers broadcasting Unity Day to 5 million. Seattle's heart beats here, she declared, her voice a spark, echoing my own at 30, when I'd dreamed of justice beyond gavels. Her National Book Club, Read for Justice, now 60,000 strong, connected my 25 to 55-year-old peers through Zoom, dissecting racism's roots, a light for a nation wrestling with its shadows. I thought of Maya Chen, 52, her silver-haired precision securing our trials reforms, her text yesterday buzzing with ambition, documentaries ago, Elena. Streaming in 26. I grinned, imagining Mia pitching our story to a platform with 25 million subscribers, Seattle's fight rippling far beyond its 488 square miles. Zoe pointed to a Rise Up booth, the mentorship app I'd launched after the trial, now linking 5,000 teens to professionals, including a 17-year-old coder whose digital mural gallery app, showcasing Unity murals, had 10,000 downloads. Mentoring her, I saw Zoe's future, unbreakable, and my heart swelled, knowing this city was hers to inherit. In the 30,000 square foot precinct, 3 miles from Pike Street, Ryan Caldwell, 42, coached basketball at a community center, his 15 monthly hours earning 30 kids' shouts of "Coach Ryan," his once cold eyes softening. The trial, a year past, had shattered his 15-year pride, and Kaylin Gwynn, 35, her Asian roots fueling her resolve, had guided him through 30-minute VR empathy sessions, letting him feel my fear, my dignity stripped. He'd spoken at a 500-person forum, 1 mile from Westlake Park, voice trembling, "I failed Judge Carter. I'm learning." Half the crowd doubted, half hoped, and I'd watched, seeing not forgiveness, but a man rebuilding, his bias, deep as Seattle's roots, fading, though not gone. Kayla, now leading precinct training, said he'd wept after a VR session, clutching Mia's photo, his 12-year-old daughter, her question, "Dad, are you better?" His compass. Yet 10% of Seattle's 700,000 resisted, their counter-rallies, 0.5 miles from City Hall, waving "Back the Blue" signs, their 50,000 X posts a shadow Caldwell once echoed. Mia's X campaigns, her latest at 6 million views, showed kids painting murals, captioned, "This is Seattle's soul, drowning their noise." I felt the divide, a crack in our city, but also the bridge, Zoe's flag, Jamal's 30 students debating reforms, their hope afire. On stage, I spoke to 3,500, Mia's mic warm. "Unity Day isn't a finish line," I said, my voice thick, thinking of my mother's stops in Tacoma. "It's a promise, to fight for Zoe, for you." Cheers rose, Rainier Beach High's drumline thumping, and I saw Jamal, his eyes proud, Zoe waving. A poet from Mia's slam, now 3,000 strong yearly, read, "No badge above my name, its words on murals citywide," and I felt Seattle, its ferries, tech hubs, coffee shops, united, yet watchful. Driving home, 7 miles, Jamal's hand steady, I thought of Caldwell, no longer a villain, but a man tethered to Mia, to Kayla's push. At home, Zoe hung her flag by her drawings, a triptych of me as judge, hero, mother, and I framed it, heart full. Maya's documentary loomed, a 19-year-old filmmaker I mentored capturing murals, Zoe's smile. Resistance lingered, 15% on X cried overreach, their 400-person rallies defiant, but Mia's truth wall, 22,000 stories, stood taller, each a voice in our chorus. Caldwell read them, VR ongoing, Mia's trust his guide, his bias a ghost he battled. Jamal, grading essays, shared a 16-year-old's words calling me Seattle's beacon, and I wept, feeling my mother's strength, Zoe's future. As fireworks lit Volunteer Park, 3,500 gasping, I held Zoe, Jamal's arm warm, the bunny charm my talisman. I reflected on my journey, from Pike Street's shock to this festival's joy, and learned 3 truths. Justice grows through collective voices, like Mia's X or the mural's colors. Change demands facing shadows, like Caldwell's guilt or my own exhaustion, and hope, like Zoe's flag, is a seed nurtured daily. If you were in a similar situation, with elements like social characters and places, cameras and social media, social perceptions of racial profiling, how would you approach it to achieve the best possible outcome? I whispered to Zoe, "Justice lives in us," and she nodded, her flag a star, Seattle's 488 square miles a canvas, its roots deep, its dawn hours to shape.